Chair Ward, I cannot locate the number for Member Brown.
Okay, for those in attendance, I do see one attendee with the hand raised. Just an announcement before the start of this meeting. We will have one agenda item that we will hear prior to public comment. So sit tight and you can hear the agenda item, which will be code enforcement. Lorraine, let me know when we're on the record.
The recording has started.
Thank you. This is a meeting of the Organized Residential Waste and Recycling Collection Citizens Committee meeting. This is Monday, January 25th at 6:02 p.m. I'm Stephen Ward, Chair. We will begin the meeting tonight with the roll call.
Chair Ward,
Present.
Vice Chair Green,
Present.
Member Borman,
Here. Present.
Member Brinker,
Here.
Member Brown, Member Frazier,
Jeff Frazier's listed as an attendee.
okay, just moved him over.
Okay.
Thank you.
I am here. Now I can unmute myself.
Member Hubka? Here. Member Kawanabe?
Here.
Member Lay?
Here.
Director DeAndrea?
Present.
Deputy Director Lundquist?
Present.
Code Enforcement Supervisor Lewis?
Present.
Back to you, Chair Ward.
Thank you. First item on the agenda, as it is every time, approval of minutes. I'll take a motion for the approval of minutes.
I move to approve the minutes from last meeting.
Seconded.
Moved by Carson Green, seconded by Jeff Frazier. Lorraine, will you please call the roll?
Chair Ward,
Yes.
Vice Chair Green,
Yes.
Member Borman,
Yes.
Member Brinker,
Yes.
Member Brown, Member Frazier,
Yes.
Member Hubka,
Yes.
Member Kawanabe,
Yes.
Member Lay.
Yes.
So just one moment. I see one of our telephone callers doesn't have a name, may possibly be Member Brown. So I'm going to go ahead and unmute the caller. Last four digits, 2436. 2436. One moment. Marcy, if that's you, will you please speak up now?
Hello?
That doesn't sound like Marcy to me. So
No,
stand by.
it's not Marcy. Do you want to let Marcy speak first, or this is Maureen White, Steve?
So we're not in the public comment portion of the agenda yet. We have
Okay.
one item prior to taking
Okay.
public comment, but stand by, Maureen. We'll get you when the time comes.
Okay,
Chair
thank
Ward?
you.
Yes.
I just received an email from Member Brown and she can't get in, so I'm going to send her the link again.
Sounds good. While we're trying to get that secured, we're just going to go ahead and proceed with the meeting. The first item on the agenda tonight is RFP Elements Services, large item pickup. We've invited Dave Lewis, the Code Enforcement Supervisor, to speak to the committee tonight regarding some items surrounding that. So, Mr. Lewis, you have the floor.
Hey, thanks for all for inviting me to participate again this week. I greatly appreciate that. Anytime code enforcement is permitted to come to any type of public forum, we are more than welcome to assist in answering our questions. And I'm really here to be a resource and answer any questions that you all have regarding a few items related to trash. In your package, you'll see this current statistic for 3 years, 2018 to 2020, regarding trash and litter violations. So that would include trash and litter, outdoor storage, and illegal dumping. And I do want to let you know that you're going to see in the 2020 statistics that they are slightly down. And I know that Mr. Green can attest to this. Code enforcement was, our priorities were shifted on the onset of COVID. And so our enforcement priorities shifted from a majority of the nuisance complaints being more proactive and engaging and out in the public, specifically with parks, so that we're able to do the COVID enforcement as directed by the governor and the city manager's office. One of the trends that we're seeing and the biggest contention right now, and there is a city council communication that came out dated January 12th that was prepared between myself and the chief of police. That would be city council request memo number 0227. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get that to your packet. It is available on the city council website for your review, which goes into more detail as to the city's position on illegal dumping. To summarize that, currently the city does not have a budget to accommodate illegal dumping. And although illegal dumping is a crime in the city of Inglewood, and unfortunately the burden is placed on property owners. Just like with graffiti, with somebody who might break your window, someone who might crash into your fence, unfortunately, it is the burden of the homeowner to remedy that nuisance violation, and that is outlined within our city ordinance. Recently, we have seen an increase in illegal dumping. We've also seen an increase in trash and litter violations over the last several months. I think COVID has had some long-lasting effects. One of those being people are choosing what bills they can and cannot pay, and one of those bills currently that we're running into, and we're really working with the community. We understand they're struggling, is they're choosing to discontinue their trash services or not paying for their bills, and that way their trash services are being cut off. They're accumulating more trash and more storage items. During COVID, we did see a number of activities change. As you all know, quite a few people were at home rather than in their businesses. And so we had an increase in trash services, or requirements and more trash within our community, not really our businesses or where people may be employed. And fortunately, the city manager, with direction from Public Works Director, made some exceptions with pickup days and how often trash could be picked up in order to accommodate that, so that trash was not lingering in our communities. But we were seeing more people doing projects at home, putting more junk and outdoor storage items outside, and people were really finding it hard or in their eyes expensive to dispose of those items such as mattresses and sofas. And so recently we've seen an increase in illegal dumping. And statistically, most people will dump within a 2-mile radius of where they reside or where they work. And so I know all of you are considering, how do you accommodate large item pickups? And I know there's 2 cities that have done a great job in accommodating that. And I would suggest that this body, if they have not, take a look at Commerce City or Longmont in the way that they've accommodated their large item pickup. It worked very well for their particular community model. But by incorporating such a pickup, it would reduce the burden that we see of trash and outdoor storage items, not only on people's properties, reducing our response and our actions by the city, but I think it would also reduce statistically reduce illegal dumpings that are happening within our community, because that is available to citizens. We've also been working recently with how much trash haulers can accommodate. As many of you know from the last proposals, and this has been a very big struggle for us in code enforcement, we like to think that we provide an exceptional level of customer service. And we do get phone calls where people are just frustrated at the level of customer service that they're receiving. And we have a few extra contacts that we have utilized to really try and drive that change in customer service and try and get some of our citizens help when they're not getting pickups or they're getting ignored. We were seeing that more during COVID. We're not receiving those complaints as much recently. But I think you all know there really are only 2 trash hauler services available to our community. Many of the smaller licensed haulers have been bought out by these 2 organizations. And so I just wanted to let you know that my experience as the supervisor and of my staff is we've spent an exorbitant amount of time advocating on behalf of our citizens to try and get them customer service and to get just their basic needs met. And I know this is a very unusual year, but I have to say this has been an ongoing concern over the last couple of years. Possibly streamlining the contract with different customer service aspects as well as large item pickup would increase the level of services that our community is receiving. I know having a centralized point of contact really did increase the response that we received here within the Code Enforcement Division. And one other big note is having large item pickups, including possibly illegal dumpings, may compel some of these contractors to be forced to come out and pick up some of these illegally dumped items within the city, therefore saving the tax burden on the citizens. We don't just have illegal dumpings that occur behind people's properties, in the front of people's properties. We've received complaints of people dumping in one person in particular, and she is okay with me sharing that, is the mayor's property. She had a whole bunch of items illegally dumped in front of her property, and we held her to the same standard that we're holding all of our citizens, is she had to find a way to get those items removed. But we have illegal dumpings that occur in parking lots within the city, within the city buildings, within our parks, with other city properties. And so this would compel those potentially those contracted professionals, if this moves forward, to come out and remove those items, further saving the taxpayers and our budget. So I wanted to open it up to questions on anything that I can help direct you with.
Kanji, you were first on the draw. Go ahead.
I'm much faster than you, Carson. You got to be quick, man. So I had a quick question. You said that there were 2 model communities that did this really well. Could you tell us what their process was?
So Commerce City, and I may be flipping these backwards. One of them, Commerce City and Longmont, one of them specifically has it where it might be a monthly or a quarterly pickup, and the other city, and I apologize, I misplaced my notes from last week. The other city, you schedule your 2 pickups throughout the year, which would also, I believe, professionally would lessen the burden on our citizens, because if you can imagine, you have a monthly large item pickup, the amount of large items that will be placed out on the curb or in the alleyway potentially cause severe obstructions and pick up coveted parking spaces for a period of time. So I can't recall which city it was. I do want to note that my colleagues in Longmont are very happy with the way that this has played out in their large item pickups. They have had a significant decrease in the number of illegal dumpings that they're seeing, and they're also seeing less hoarding and large item outdoor storage violations within the city of Inglewood since they started their program. My colleagues in Commerce City note similar things, but they weren't able to provide me any concrete data or materials to back that up, but I have not heard many complaints from my colleagues in either of those two cities.
Got it. Thank you. And thank you for presenting tonight. Really appreciate it.
Next up, Carson.
Hi, Supervisor Lewis. Thanks.
Good to see
thanks
you
for
again in a
coming.
week.
Right. Do you know anything about Westminster? I think they have a program too.
I am not familiar. I don't have a professional connection with Westminster, but I'm happy to reach out to my colleagues. Each city does code enforcement very different, and how it's placed and administered within a city. So I'm happy to reach out to Westminster to see what my colleagues say there.
Yeah, I'd be interested. My girlfriend lives there, and I noticed actually this week she said, because I noticed there were like big bags out in front of some of her neighbors' houses with like lots of waste in them, and she said that was provided by the city, not even because they don't have single hauler, they have individual arrangements. But she said the city is providing. I don't know if she wasn't sure if it was annual or twice annual, where if you ask for it, they give you this giant bag and you can put waste in it and they take it. So I'm interested in what that is.
Okay.
And then what falls under outdoor storage versus illegal dumping?
So it's the way that it's reported. It falls under the same category. The way one item would come in would be a citizen or someone would reach out to code enforcement and say, these items were dumped in the back of our house and they were seeking direction, versus the outdoor storage, which is more proactive type of connotation, where code enforcement did an inspection and noted a violation in the alleyway that we would note as outdoor storage over illegal dumping. And we really don't recategorize that from outdoor storage if someone claims it's an illegal dumping, because we took the proactive initiative to observe that violation.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Carson. Brenda, you're up next.
Hi, good to see you again. It's been a while.
What? Doesn't seem like it. We go way back. We had a neighbor kind of between us who taught us a lot about the difference between outdoor storage and junk.
Yes. No.
Anyway, yeah, so I'm very interested in the solution, and I just heard yours for the first time tonight, and I want to read them back to you and then tell you what was on our first bid. And that is, you were saying that it could be a monthly pickup or quarterly, something like that. And then you said maybe at the home, because in our first bid, these two vendors only offered, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong, they wanted to put a dumpster out somewhere in Englewood and everybody would come drive to the dumpster, something like that. I don't even know how that would work, but I wondered about your thoughts about how practical either solution is in Englewood and what would be your preference.
So
You're coming through very faintly. So wherever your microphone is, if you could just get a little closer, it's really tough to hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Did you hear the question though?
I did hear. So you're asking about residential over a community dumpster approach. I would, speaking with my staff, and I want you to all know that my staff and I are very involved with this process. We've listened to your meetings, we've taken notes, we've staffed your concerns, and we've tried to come up with ideas of our own. I want this committee to think, if you were a victim of an illegal dumping and you only had 2 scheduled pickups a year, how long would you need to hold on to those items before you could have a pickup? That was a complication that we had. And if we went to a property and we inspected that they had storage items in their alley, how long are those items going to sit there? Is it going to be that month, or is it going to be 6 months down the road? And so that's why I really latched on. Maybe it's eluding me. I want to say it might be Commerce City, where the scheduled approach worked, because you could select your own items, but you could also, if you were a victim of something, you could have those items removed. There are also set fee schedules, so that you would know, okay, well, this is how much my Christmas tree is going to cost if it's not included in the contract, or which is a big deal in the code enforcement world, Christmas trees being stored and placed in places they shouldn't be. Taking the community dumpster approach, if we can't get people to get a truck, find a van, find something that's going to haul this, that item is going to wind up in the alley or somewhere else. So take into consideration, what if you were a citizen, or you, how easily do you have access to a flatbed truck to take away a sofa or a dresser that may have been dumped in your alleyway? Or if you, as the homeowner, want to get rid of that item, instead of putting the old sofa or couch up on your porch, or your old refrigerator or other items, how can I best get rid of those that are the most economic? We have junk pickers, we have all kinds of people that do things for fees. Having something I think might be considered consistent and something that is in writing, I think would encourage people to utilize whatever you all, if it's a recommendation, whatever you choose. Because you all are involved in this, you know the prices range. I could get one price for a mattress for $25 and the next person could charge me $100. There's no consistency because it's all based on the value and how quickly somebody wants to get rid of an item on their property. All right, that was long-winded.
No, that's very good. Thank you.
Thanks, Brenda. We're going to Jeff next.
Thanks, Chair Ward. And thank you, Supervisor Lewis. Is it Supervisor Lewis?
It is.
Well, thanks for joining us tonight. And I apologize for not having my video on. My camera doesn't seem to be working. So you're all in luck to not look at my ugly mug here. I just want to clarify and make sure I understand how our large item pickup works right now. As I understand it, as you said, the burden's on the homeowner, being that if they need something picked up, they basically have to find either their current hauler and pay an additional fee to do so, or some other, somebody with a truck to take it to the dump or something like that. I don't believe, as far as I know, any of the haulers operating in Englewood currently offer it as a part of their base service. Is that your understanding?
That is my understanding, and from my own personal knowledge in working in this field for the last 5 years here in the city, those are usually extra fees that you would need to ask for with your hauler. So I've heard people paying, as little as $30 some a month, up to $100 for trash. But those particular large items have to be scheduled with your provider, or there are certain companies that can do that for you. I even know of community members that are willing to help out with those for small fees. And I know that's trash hauling, but they do advertise in social media and they are considered neighbors that are helping you out neighborly.
Understood. And so if every citizen through a potential single hauler program had large item pickup, whether it be once, twice a year, once a month, at least a few options per year for that large item pickup, would you anticipate that would free up resources or potentially lower the burden upon code enforcement as far as the illegal dumping? And you may not know.
I can guarantee you that it would reduce the burden significantly on code enforcement, because the most common complaints that we receive is, I don't know where to take it, I don't know how to dispose of it, or it costs too much money for these items to be removed. And this specifically, and if you can look at last year, specifically the trash and litter, outdoor storage, and illegal dumping, and then the year before, outdoor storage is a huge burden in our community and is one of those things that leads to bigger quality of life concerns. So if you can imagine having somebody have a sofa in front of their yard for 6 months while we're going down a court trial, try and get it removed through the municipal court system, and the burden that it has not just on the citizens, but the burden on our resources as a whole. For me to get a couch removed for someone's yard could take potentially multiple hours of court time, multiple hours of resources of inspections, multiple hours of a municipal judge, plus testimony. the longest case that we had regarding outdoor storage took 18 months before an abatement was ordered by the city. So if you can imagine the frustration of a citizen who just wants to have a couple of sofas in the neighborhood, who is complaining about a property that is in violation of outdoor storage, the frustrations that that places and the burden it places on the community members. Did I answer your
you.
question?
Yes, you did. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Sorry, I don't know if that came through. Carson, you're up.
Oh, you mentioned that you thought there were only 2 providers right now, but I know of at least 3. What are the 2 that you know of?
The 2 that I'm most familiar with would be Waste Connections and Waste Management. Those would be the 2 that were the most are heavily solicited by the city of Inglewood. And again, I don't have concrete numbers. They won't share with me, but I will tell you that there was a significant problem with pickup days and how that was being done prior to COVID that impacted over 4,200, 4,500 residents because their trash wasn't being picked up in a timely manner. So these are big numbers that these particular trash haulers. What is the third that I might not be as familiar with?
Well, Republic is still available. And then there's kind of a fourth, because there's Waste Services that they offer service, but it's actually Waste Management that provides the service.
And I apologize, Republic and Waste Connections have been merged together, so it is known as Republic, not Waste Connections. I apologize.
Oh, I didn't know Waste Connections bought Republic too.
Yeah, so that's what's happening is they're being all gobbled up, and what you're gonna see, most of them also utilize the same dumping ground. So you really are, and it's sad that the choices have been changed, where there were multiple licensees. Now they're really, you're saying 3, I'm only aware of the 2, but one of them is subcontracting, which to me is really not a valid conversation because they're not providing the service.
Yeah, no, I mean, Republic was one of the companies that responded to our RFP. Waste Connections didn't, and I know Waste Connections bought American Disposal, that bought Lee's.
Yep.
But yeah, I didn't realize that. Okay. So yeah, I thought there were at least 3, but I guess not. Thank you.
So those are all the members who have their hands raised.
Anything else I can help you all with?
I think we're good. Thanks, Dave.
You're welcome. You all have a good night.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, so that was our new business agenda item, which was agenda item number 4, agenda item number 5. We now come to recognize public comment. I'm going to start with Maureen, who we heard earlier, and there are several other hands raised. If you are a member of the public in attendance and you wish to comment tonight, go ahead and raise your hand. I will do my best to call you in the order that your hand raises.
Chair Ward, would you want to give a 2-sentence summary about the role of the committee and any decisions we've made about the prior RFPs and any decisions we've made about selecting a provider and so forth, given the confusion from last week?
Certainly. Thank you for that, Christine. There are a couple of things. First of all, as our agenda indicates, comment is limited to 3 minutes. So please hold your presentation to 3 minutes. Secondly, as Member Brinker just made reference to, this is an advisory committee. Our purpose is to explore options for single hauler and to make recommendations to City Council. The city did issue a prior request for proposal That request for proposal received 2 responses, one from Waste Management and one from Republic Services. This committee recommended to council that both of those responses be rejected, and council accepted that recommendation. So it's very important for us to note that there is nothing currently on the table regarding single hauler in Inglewood. Our task as we see it right now is to work through a new potential request for proposal, determining the elements that we wish to keep and the elements that we may wish to abandon, or items that we may have some flexibility on. So that's where we're at. With that said, I will go to Maureen. Just one moment, Maureen, and I will go ahead and unmute your phone.
Good evening. I wasn't able to get in last week. Now, hopefully I'm in. Can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. So this discussion was very interesting tonight about large item pickups. I know in the past I've been able to arrange with my trash company at that time, call and ask, you know, can you pick this up and how much will it be? So I heard Carson mention that maybe Westminster, you're allowed to do that. So I just want to make it clear that I don't think we're tied to everybody being with the same single hauler trash company in order to get that done. And it's good to know that it's the citizens' responsibility, even if it wasn't your trash that was dumped on your property. So a question, why are these meetings always on the same night and the same time as City Council? And you don't have to answer that right now. And I think the directions could be made just a little bit clearer, because when you first call in, it said you are now participant in this meeting. You will be muted throughout the meeting. I think it needs to be pointed out right there and then that you will be allowed to speak and given direction to do so, so don't give up. And so I'm okay with a group investigating and negotiating trash services for other interested residents. I'm not okay if anything is going to be forced on other residents in the way of a plan that there will be no vote on and no opt-out. And I understand you're just pushing forward recommendations to City Council, but I think you could also encourage that there be a vote by the citizens and that there be an opt-out portion to this program, a provision. Okay, and when you go about it in this other way, it seems residents are all going to be expected to share in the same cost of services that maybe they did not choose, such as the size, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, this is just what it seems to me, the size of the barrels we'll have to use, and the idea of recycling if we're not interested in recycling. And then it seems we'll also have to, every resident, share in the cost that hiring more staff for the city, you know, would have to come up with the money of hiring staff to manage this. And the other item I don't like, if there are problems with your services, like now if I have a missed pickup, I call them, they come back the next day, if not that day. If not, I can get credited. And I think I've heard that, no, the credit will go to the city. So you can correct me if I'm wrong, but right now I've had trash service since 1992. I have not gone a week without paying for trash services. I've been capable of arranging that, paying for it, and I want to continue to do that myself. So it's not broken for me. It seems it is broken for some of you. So you have the right to fix it, but I hope you'll fix it just for yourself and for the other people who feel the same way. So thank you for all your efforts, and it sounds like the number of companies is dwindling fast that you could do a contract with, and to just pick a company that's been able to buy out the other companies seems to help eliminate competition. So thank you all. I appreciate what you do, but I'm not in agreement with all of it.
Thank you, Ms. White. Van Fussel next. Van, you are unmuted.
Howdy, this is Van with Compost Colorado. I spoke last week, as you may recall, giving a short overview of our service, Compost Colorado, a compost collection service that provides for households in Inglewood. I am very, again, excited about this opportunity to apply. I reached out to the committee via email. I'm not sure if y'all received it, but I will read some of what I wrote, as I think it's very pertinent to the discussion on compost. First of all, Cocoa is a Colorado-based business and also a public benefit company that is focused on developing easy, accessible compost solutions in order to make it as easy as possible for folks to start composting, while also focusing on completing the loop. We've developed a more comprehensive organic waste solution through our weekly bucket swap program, which collects members' household organic waste on a weekly basis and collects yard debris only when needed. We provide a soil dividend back to our members each spring, which we deliver for folks to use in time for spring planting. Collecting yard debris and household organic waste separately allows for more affordable and green service where large dump trucks are not necessary and provides an opportunity for these two waste products to be processed more effectively. In regard to the debrief discussion on Monday, I have a few recommendations. It would seem that the committee is already leaning towards green waste and the weekly collection of compost elements separate. I think this is a wise decision, as I explained above. Yard debris needs only to be collected seasonally. Combining them adds a burden to the homeowner, as they will need an additional large bin that they would rarely fill up with their kitchen scraps, and when only a small bucket is only necessary. For example, the city of Loveland only provides green waste collection for about 7 months of the year. Another element that I disagree respectfully with this committee is the motion that was passed on the November 30th meeting with regards to bi-weekly compost collection. While I have a lot of respect for this committee, and I applaud everybody on this for taking the time and effort to work for your city to make your trash service a little bit better, I do think that some more thought should have been put into that before you pass that motion. When compost is collected bi-weekly, odor problems are caused quickly. This is why most municipalities in Colorado and nearly all across the United States collect compost weekly. Bi-weekly will cause an odor issue, and as mentioned before, will reduce quality of life for your community, and it will not make people want to start composting. I highly recommend this committee revisit that motion after doing more research. Again, Boulder, Denver, Edgewater, and Lafayette, they all have weekly compost service, and there is a reason why that most municipalities choose weekly. I also believe that the RFP for compost and perhaps even recycling should include elements for education and outreach. While I think this may seem superfluous, educating the public on recycling and composting correctly allows for the kids.
Mr. Fussell, that's time. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Next up, Cynthia. Cynthia, go ahead, please.
Okay, good evening. First, I would like to thank Member Green, Brinker, Brown, and I'm sorry, Kanwabe, I'm sorry for that pronunciation, for voting to include public comment in this meeting. When there is no public input to a meeting, the meeting becomes a private club, not a public meeting, moving forward the interests of the Inglewood citizens. So I wanted to thank those members for voting no at the end of the last meeting on the 11th. I would like to address Member Hipcott's insistence that you include recycling in your basic RFP for basic service, because there is no demonstrable evidence in Denver Metro that even as much as 20% of our recycling materials are actually being recycled. I cited the numerous news reports in 2020 that stated that even 20% is an exaggeration going forward. and that recycling should be an a la carte item added to the basic service that people can elect into if they want to do that or not. It is not something that has a return on investment from the individual homeowner. Furthermore, the residential community here in Inglewood is being pushed to bear the burden of waste removal here in Inglewood, whereas the large residential interests and commercial interests are having no burden of recycling or composting placed upon them. So this is an unequal share in the burden for Inglewood single-family homes. That does not seem equitable. Also, the issue of having to pay with a year's inclusion into this program for single-family homes, whereas the large commercial residential buildings don't have to opt out and aren't included here, is a further penalty to single-family homes to unfairly bear the burden of this project. I also wanted to commend Supervisor Lewis for stating that the greatest number of his calls has been lack of customer service. And I also wanted to thank Member Frazier for bringing up the issue of an exit clause for our RFP based on service of the provider, and that should be a key component. I disagree with Member Frazier when he said he felt that competition was in the bid for a 10-year contract, whereas for my contract, when I can, because we're
Cynthia,
losing carriers,
3-minute time. Thank you.
the competition is weekly.
Next up, Ms. Williamson.
Hello, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm starting with a reminder to this committee of my First Amendment right to speak and voice my complaints and concerns. This last meeting, some things were brought up that did concern me. And so I went online and I looked up CASE. On their webpage, CASE stands for Citizens Alliance for a Sustainable Inglewood, and that they work with Inglewood City Council members on policy options. Their entire homepage is dedicated to pushing the single hauler trash racket. Half or more people of this committee is from CASE. They list among their achievements, they got the city to move forward on single hauler trash. Again, half or more of this supposed to be bipartisan committee is from CASE. They have inserted themselves here to force their personal agenda with CASE without voter approval. This is highly unethical, in my opinion, and I call for the removal of all CASE members from this committee to be replaced by honest, non-duplicitous, non-connected citizens. Thank you.
Could I ask a question?
Okay.
Where are you getting that half of the members of this committee are on CASE?
Well, there are articles written on the website and signed, and several of those names are also on this committee.
Thank you.
And also, in the interest of honesty, I don't think
Ms. Williamson, you just muted yourself, it looks like.
I did not mute myself, but if you can hear me now.
Last thing you heard was
what part did you miss?
honesty.
The sentence
Okay.
you cut out on started with something about honesty.
Okay, so what it cut out after the question about how did I get that more than half or more people were in case?
You said in the interest of honesty, and that is the last thing we heard from you.
Okay, well, in the interest of honesty, I think that all case members should not hide that they are in case. And it really speaks volumes that so many, that it seems to be an actively kept secret from what happened from the last meeting. And I don't think it should be.
Are there any other questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you, Ms. Williamson.
Thank you.
Next up is Claudine Berger.
And here she is. Thank you very much for your time. I would like to second the notion from the last speaker. It was quite offensive that you were asked who is on case. Nobody answered. The question came again. And then the question came to individual members. And subsequent to this, and I wrote that down the last time because it was offensive to me, is that the person, the committee started gaslighting. They humiliated, disgraced, belittled that member. It was not an emotional question. It was just a question. If there's any transparency in this committee, it would have been an easy yes or no question. Nothing else. Not offensive, not emotional. And I'm taken aback that committee member was run over and the audience was gaslighted. It's not acceptable, but I would like to make a suggestion and speak about recycling briefly. In Europe, in most countries of Europe, at the end of each street or on either side of the alley, they have recycling bins for the entire neighborhood. And people just walk that half block and dump it in. Might it be greenery, might it be food, might it be cans. It's an idea than every person having a recycling bin. People might be more willing to do that, to pay it by one street. Not that I like to be forced without a vote into doing something that I don't want to do. But just to give you some numbers from Berkeley, as well as the master's degree of Columbia University. Recycling is broken in the US because the US has shipped its recycling first to China. China said no in 2018. It was drowning in US trash. From there, it went to Malaysia, Vietnam, Thailand. And after that, when those countries said no, then we now dump it as a rich country into Cambodia, Bangladesh, Ghana, Laos, Ethiopia, Kenya, and Senegal. Because we have dumped our recycling, might it be glass, cans, or whatever is not recyclable. And as such, the recyclable trash is contaminated. The recycling industry has not developed, and all companies that have the big green letters saying we are for a green Colorado are actually not for a green Colorado because the numbers belie that statement. Why don't we go after builders, for example, it's just an example, or companies to force them to produce things we actually can recycle, because number 3 and number 7 on any bottle is not recyclable. Most glass goes in landfills, most trash goes in landfills, most bottles go in landfills.
Ms. Berger, that's your time. Thank you.
Thank you for letting me speak.
Our last speaker is C.N. Dickerson.
Before I get started, how do I get a written statement submitted to the committee? I know they said I could do it, but I've not been able to find out how.
So on the meeting notice for these committee meetings, which are posted on the city's website, under agenda item 5, which is recognition of public comment, the last paragraph of that contains the committee's clerk, her email address. So you would submit any written comment to that email address.
Okay, I missed that. Thank you for letting me know. Okay. Last meeting, a number of citizens spoke to this committee objecting to single hauler trash, and their objections were dismissed as false information, that no decision had been made, yet an RFP had been issued and rejected. Another was in the works, and 2 new clerks are budgeted at a very high salary rate to administer single hauler trash through the city utility department. This kind of seems like most of us that the decision has been made to go with single hauler trash, even though the original 3 public meetings yielded major objections to the plan. With only 2 haulers, it seems like there's no real need for single hauler trash. And you could do it by the rules, by ruling license rules, and also cut down on the number of trucks needed by allowing pickup per district. So like on Monday, District 1 could have a pickup, Tuesday, District 2 could have the pickup, and then spread it out for the city so that they'll need to have fewer trucks all on 1 or 2 days. And you also said you were a study group and hadn't made any full decisions yet. But I'm wondering if you studied how Boulder does it. You know how environmentally conscious they are, and they do not have single hauler trash, but they do have it built into the rules and their licensing agreements with them, and they have barrels placed for recycling and other things. So how they're handling the recycling, I don't know, because I agree with Cynthia and Claudine, and in part with Tammy Williamson on those issues of recycling. Imposition of such a single hauler plan failed in the past due to citizen objectives and due to practical reasons. The city assuming the overhead is a recipe for disaster, increasing government waste of taxpayer dollars when we need to cut overhead to do what is truly emergency and essential needs. One of your proposals was to do large item pickup in the contract, ostensibly to prevent dumping. There is nothing that can prevent that. And right now, neighbors can band together and share dumpsters whenever it's needed. Also, if you have a contract with any of these, at least up until a month ago, and I called Republic and they didn't say they were Waste Connection, but they said if I had a contract with them, a year contract, I could get more than one time large item pickup just upon request without an extra fee. It was built into the contract. Many of us already compost and recycle at a much lower cost than any trash company or contract can manage. But it is our property and our rights are our property. We have the right to contract with whomever we please or not, so long as our use of our property does not endanger our neighbors. Don't punish single-family homeowners for the less than 1% of the miscreants, not to mention apartment dwellers and commercial properties that are exempt from this. No contract, please.
All right, that concludes public comment. If any of the members would like to speak in response to public comment, please raise your hand now. Carson, I see you with your hand raised. You can go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to ask Ms. Dickerson, can you say what you said about Republic? So you're saying that currently Republic offers, was it once or twice a year large item pickup scheduled, included without extra fees?
That's what they told me. And it was a month ago. And they never said anything about having been bought by Waste Connections, and they're still running their trucks independently of Waste Connection.
Was it once a year or twice a year? And was it
No,
on
they
your
just
own?
said upon request. They didn't give me any limitation.
And they specifically said it wouldn't cost extra?
That's correct.
Okay,
That it
thank you.
came with the service that I could schedule it.
Thank
But
you.
I do happen to know that there are a number of places that I can take large items if I can move them in my car, or I can have them come pick up. For $25, I can get a refrigerator picked up.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
So there was one question submitted to the Q&A on the Zoom meeting, and that is, what is the proposed price? And I just want to emphasize this one more time. There is no proposed price because there is no proposed contract currently. So that's not a question that we can answer right now. The duty of this committee is to refine the new RFP, decide if we're going to send out a new request for proposals, and then to counsel the city council on how to respond to the proposals that come in. I do see one more attendee with hand raised, Cindy Webb. I'm going to go ahead and unmute you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. This is my first time to attend any of these meetings, and really it's just, I'm just hearing about this proposed single hauler trash issue. I just want to say that we've lived here for 23 years and we've always had Republic services. We've never had any problems. They tell us when they're going to be a day late due to a federal holiday. They always come, and we have recycling, plus I have my own compost bin. So for me, it's not broken. I don't need it fixed. We have been very happy with our trash service, and it's just not an issue. I don't see large items being dumped and or illegally dumped in our neighborhood, and so that doesn't appear to be an issue either. When I joined in this call, there was a conversation going on about large item pickup, and quite frankly, I don't believe we've ever needed large item pickup. So again, I see this as a problem that doesn't need, there is no problem, and I don't know why we're doing this. So I'll just leave it at that. Thank you very much.
I do have a question for you, Ms. Webb.
Sure.
Where do you see harm in exploring the possibility that service could be contracted citywide, potentially with better service for less money for everyone?
Well, first of all, the last statement you made, I think what you're proposing is going to cost more money, and I suspect that the service will be less than what I'm receiving right now. And again, we've been very happy, and I don't see any reason to change this. I really don't. I think if, everybody has the right to do what they want to do with their trash, and people keep their places looking pretty nice and pretty cleaned up. So again, it doesn't appear to be a problem, and I don't wish to have a different service. We've been very happy with the service that we currently have.
So if
and let me just add this too. It appears that just from listening to some of the other people speaking, that this would include adding extra cost to the city government, and I would rather pay my bills myself rather than have my taxes raised to pay this. I guess that's the option for paying for this. Or are they going to add it to our water bill? What's the plan here? I mean, I know you're making these requests for proposals, but surely somebody's thought about how this is going to get paid for, and what an acceptable monthly fee for homeowners is for this.
So I want to make sure that I don't misstate your stance, but I also want to make sure that I properly capture it.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Correctly, what you're saying is that you're concerned that this committee might recommend the adoption of an option that doesn't serve your needs or the needs of the community?
That is correct.
For good, in other words.
And that is correct. And nobody has told us what this is going to cost.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have. Do any other members have questions? I see Marcy Brown has joined us and has her hand raised.
Thank you.
So what's this gonna cost?
Marcy, are you there?
Okay, I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Since this committee has only had really two trash companies offer to sign a contract with Inglewood, that much is correct. Am I right, Chair Ward?
Yes, although I'm a little concerned that we might be outside of the scope of what we're doing on the agenda right now.
Point of order.
Go
Are we
ahead.
in members' choice right now or continuing into the agenda? I thought this was a question for a member of public comment.
That's what I was just trying to unpack.
Well, I guess I was trying to clear that up, but that's okay.
Carson, you have your hand raised. Did you have something to offer?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask Ms. Webb, you said you've had Republic the whole time, and I think you said you didn't notice any change if they were purchased by Waste Connections. Is that true? You weren't even aware of that change?
Yes, I'm sorry.
We hear you.
Can you hear me? Okay, I couldn't tell if I was on or not. We have had Republic Services ever since we moved here 23 years ago. And it's billed the same way. Nothing has changed at all. And the rates have been very constant. We haven't had big increases. And again, it's pretty seamless. We put the trash out, they pick it up. So again, and I'm not aware that they changed companies or bought anybody else out or that anybody else bought them. And they've always been really, really good. We still have a landline. They leave us a voicemail when our service is going to be delayed a day due to a holiday. So again, there's really not a problem here.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So committee members, we do have one more member of the public who has raised their hand. I know that I called into this section, but I think it's fair since we called Ms. Webb after to go ahead and call Gail Ogden. Gail, go ahead.
Okay, hi. I don't know if the committee's taken into consideration the harm or difficulties this could introduce into the lives of the low income, elderly, disabled, or the vulnerable populations within our city, or how this could negatively impact them and their financial situations and general quality of life. Considering how many of our citizens are within one of the previously mentioned groups, I also take issue with fixed prices, which you don't know what they'll be, for the service across our city, because this would create an imbalance in responsibility with the well-off and wealthiest paying next to nothing compared to their income, while the low or fixed income citizens would be expected to take on a financial burden proportionately much greater than the other population. All this, and there's still the hypocrisy of residents being forced into this plan, while corporations, businesses, and wealthier landowners of apartment complexes and the like be exempt and allowed to operate outside this plan, meaning they will not financially contribute anything and putting the whole burden of this on the citizens. With all this in mind, I am firmly against the idea of a single hauler, as the proper due diligence has not been shown by the committee to ensure against the negative outcome to shield against harming those most at risk in our city. I don't think this should be added to our water. Let people do what they want to do with it, or take it to the vote. Thank you.
Carson?
Sorry, that was left up from before.
Christine?
Yeah, I had a couple comments related to some of the comments, and I really want to thank everyone for coming to share their opinions on this as we sort through potential elements of an RFP. One is that we heard a number of comments about we don't know how much this is going to cost. It's true, we don't know at this point how much it is going to cost because the city hasn't reissued the RFP, so we haven't gotten the bids back. We rejected the first RFPs specifically because the cost was too high, and we are trying to explore getting a lower cost and better service by reissuing the RFP. Those are two of the key goals of the committee and of City Council and why they formed this committee. So as far as how much it's going to cost, we don't know, but our goal in doing this is to get as low a cost as possible. And it is not a substantially lower cost for the majority of Inglewood citizens. Probably the committee may reject the next RFP bids as well. There was also some comment about penalties. I think that stemmed from a misunderstanding as well. We haven't made any decisions as a committee yet about where the penalties will go. That's one of the things that will come up on our agenda, probably not tonight at this point, but probably later. And it's more than just a missed pickup. Right now, I can get a credit on my bill if they miss my pickup, but the penalties that this process is considering is much more substantial. It's in the thousands of dollars. And one of the items on our agenda is to consider where those penalty dollars would go. Perhaps some would go back to the homeowner. We haven't decided that yet. And perhaps some would go towards lowering bills for low-income residents. And that was obviously a key concern amongst everyone in the committee and all the commenters. There have been a lot of comments on why corporations, businesses, wealthy landowners, apartments are exempted from this process. That's because they're in a different system, so to speak. We, as a committee, were only tasked with considering residential single hauler. The businesses currently negotiate their own, and we haven't been tasked with discussing whether they should or could be included in this process. So it's not that they were purposely left out by our committee. There were also some concerns about the bin size. That was another point of misinformation that we heard a couple weeks ago. And again, that has not been decided. In fact, we, if I recall correctly, we voted in a past meeting when we reissue an RFP to explore getting costs for small, medium, and large bin sizes where each household could choose which bin size works best for their level of trash along with their physical abilities. And in response to physical abilities also, it's worth noting that both of the previous respondents did offer at no extra cost door-to-door service for disabled or senior residents who are unable to drag their bin to the trash. And last thing, there have been a lot of comments about why we're doing this in the first place. Besides cost, besides environmental quality, one of the main reasons is because we've been hearing so much that people want alley service and other people want street service. Right now, it's very difficult to get alley service. The choices there are being more and more limited. So this would potentially be a way to offer alley service where right now the companies are unwilling to do that, or most of them are. Sorry for taking up so much time, but I just wanted to clarify a few of those things. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. Are there other members who would like to respond to public comment, or if we would like to move on to the rest of the agenda, that would also be good. I don't see any hands raised. I'll just provide one administrative note before we move into the new business that we are to cover tonight. I'd like to reserve the last 15 minutes of the meeting tonight for members' choice and chairperson's choice. We haven't had a lot of time for unstructured discussion in our recent meetings, and I think 15 minutes would kind of help us advance or get a preview of some of our future meetings. So I wanted to throw that out.
Do you want a motion for that? I like that idea.
Yeah, I can.
Yeah, I was mostly just looking for the support of the committee. We have on every meeting chairperson's choice and committee members' choice, but we haven't been getting to it. So if we can all agree to just cut off whatever we're doing at 7:45, we'll proceed to that portion of the evening.
Good idea.
Sounds good.
Good.
Thanks, everybody. I appreciate how accommodating this committee is most of the time. Number 6, new business. I'm going to go ahead and hand the floor over to Director DeAndrea. And Maria, if you're talking right now, we cannot hear you.
Sorry. So thank you, everybody. Good discussion. So we'll start off with the large item pickup. So this was I believe the last remaining element within the RFP for service related items. So we heard earlier from Supervisor Lewis from his take from a code enforcement perspective. And similar to what we've done in the past, I'll talk a little bit about what we had originally put in the RFP, and then we can open it up for discussion about this topic. So the way we wrote it in the previous RFP was that we were going to require large item pickup 2 times per year for the entire all households, and the service was to be provided either in the alley or at the curb. So really minimizing the effort of the homeowner to get those items out to those locations. That was part of the base service, so included in the overall cost of the household. Large items could also be scheduled for collection at other times of the year at an additional cost to that household, and we established a list of those prices. So I believe both of them, I believe one was $40 per item and one was $25 kind of across the board. So they didn't make a distinction between the type of item, like a mattress was equivalent to a stove, was equivalent to a couch, and that price was consistent for both entities. This was a key element for Keep Englewood Beautiful when we had been talking with them previously when this initiative started, and for the city, as again, Supervisor Lewis mentioned, to try to reduce dumped items and improve the aesthetics in the community. So Public Works is also in there because we're often then tasked with cleaning up items that really don't belong to anybody or in the right of way. And that puts a burden on city resources as well. So instead of getting that, the responses that we got from both providers was a system where they would set up for a particular day, usually a Saturday, over either at a local park or somewhere else, within the community at a couple locations where you could bring your items to that site for disposal. While that, again, that was not what we specified within the RFP, because it reduces the efficiency for, I feel, for the haulers, but also convenience primarily for citizens. And again, while you could probably get your neighbor to help you move a couch out to the alley or to the curb, it's a far different thing to find someone who has a pickup truck and can get it even to a park a couple blocks away. So with that, I'll turn the discussion back over to Chair Ward. Just a couple of items to consider is, do we want to keep those large item pickups part of that base service? If so, at what frequency? We can certainly start with like 2 events per year and then add on, and going back to our options discussion, if we want to say, oh, what would be a 3rd one potentially? Let's get maybe a price for that. Do we want to continue to specify that be at the alley or the curb versus in a park or a facility? Do we want to include those costs at other times of the year and let that be a predetermined pricing? I would say yes to that one. So people can have the option and know what that price is without having to call around and get different quotes. And then would we want to consider, because this kind of got wrapped up into our green waste collection last time, do we want to consider having some of those green waste collection events? Maybe we do it with the large item of pickup date or on a different date in a park or a facility parking lot. So with that, I'll turn it back to Chair Ward and be available for any questions.
Brenda, you're first up.
Can you hear me? Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. There's so much there. I mean, that's like, wow, there's a lot. So just starting at the top, or rather what we left up on that other PDF, is that we asked them for large item pickup, but they only came back with this answer that, well, no, but we'll let you gather it in a parking lot. I can only suspect that, again, I don't know how to incentivize this for them other than changing that contract term, but I'd love to know is why they did it for Longmont and Commerce City, and they're not willing to do it for us. Of course, they would have to answer that question. So I just think that's odd. And then, so I would have to, and I think you all might agree that we need it picked up at the house, at the residence. And maybe we need to make a fee schedule for that, like our code enforcement officer suggested. You know, because there's a big difference between putting your fridge out for pickup versus your leaves and stuff. So I guess I don't want to consider, and you maybe want to vote on this. I don't want to consider having everything, say Miller Field, a dumping day at Miller Field. I don't know if you want to vote on that, but then we can segue into green waste collection. But I think that he had a valid point, our green waste guest, that green waste collection events would probably not suit our needs if we're just letting a lot of stuff get moldy and weird. And with that, I will end. Please discuss.
Thank you, Brenda. Carson, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I agree with Member Hubka. I think that, you know, if we were going to include large item pickup, that it should only be considered if it's at the home. I mean, the whole point of someone needing it is because they can't move it. And I think the way that the potential providers responded by saying they would do it at designated locations, I think that's worthless and not worth including. And, you know, the other thing is I'd like to point out that's what Supervisor Lewis said about it being a scheduled thing, like where each individual has the option to schedule a couple times a year, would be, you know, superior for several reasons, because then, you know, it fits when someone needs it. And instead of it being some particular day where everybody fills up the alley with large things and, you know, creating potential obstructions. I mean, it would be a far better service to citizens if it was something they could schedule, you know, a couple times a year when they want it. And if Republic is already offering that as part of their service, I'm very curious, and this would be something I think we should include when we interview the potential providers as to, you know, depending, I guess, if we're going to interview them before or after this RFP, assuming it's going to be after, we might have their next response. But I would like to know why they're offering it as a scheduled included service now, but then they didn't offer that as even an option when we specified it needed to be that way.
Thank you, Carson. I'll just say one thing real quick. I have Republic. I use Republic. I pay quarterly. That's the first I've heard regarding large item pickup. I called them about a large item pickup when I first engaged them, and it was extremely expensive, like ridiculous. It actually ended up costing me less or roughly the same to get a roll off at my house instead of doing their large item pickup. Dane, you're next.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I agree with Vice Chair Green. I think we do need to have pickup at the house. I think these large items, the reason why we're having a problem with them is because they're not able to be carried to a park or held somewhere for 6 months till the next event. I think one way to keep the price down too is that we can schedule it with the providers, because that way, you know, they can have, say, well, there's one truck that goes out or one rollaway type of thing that goes around and says, oh, there's only 10 houses this week that needs to have large item pickup, versus them needing to have 30 trucks if we did it twice a year. Because if we put it all at one day, there's no way they can pick up our entire city in one day without having that many trucks just available. And I'm sure that's one of the reasons they didn't want to do that, really, other than rollaways in a park. But if we can schedule it, you know, if there's 10, 15, 20 houses every week, they can at least accommodate that with a single truck. And I think that's it.
Thank you, Christine.
Thanks. It sounds like from our previous comments that a roll-off event in a designated location is really not something we're interested in. Sounds like we're probably going to take that off the table. As for Republic, just like you, Chairman Ward, my neighbor has Republic, and she says she has to pay for each extra large item pickup. It certainly wasn't free. It certainly wasn't included in her contract. So I don't know that that's a regular thing they do. And about large item pickup in general, I'm a bit torn, because it was really helpful to hear from Supervisor Lewis about the illegal dumping and the code enforcement costs that we all have to pay for. At this particular moment, I'm leaning slightly towards what Member Borman was saying, in that given our intense need to reduce the monthly cost to all residents, I'm leaning towards leaving it off the monthly cost. When we got our previous bids, it was on the order of something like 50 cents a month. And I would lean towards maybe keeping it as a one-off when a homeowner requests it. The last RFP, it was on the order of something like $40 a time when you needed them to pick up a large item. So maybe that's something that the homeowner would pay when they're in that situation. Thanks.
I think this might be something we could get a better grasp on during open discussions with the haulers if they're willing to come. Personally, I agree with the other sentiments that have been shared tonight. Large item is really most useful when it involves them coming to your house the same way we do it now. Come to my house and pick up this large item that I can't carry anywhere else. Carson?
I'm also curious. I mean, Supervisor Lewis said he would check with Westminster, since they don't have single hauler, but they have some coordinated large item pickup program. I mean, I wonder, is this something that, since it's, you know, in the interest of the city and code enforcement, something that, you know, could be potentially be separate from the residential single hauler program? I mean, is it possible that that it's worth it to have the city coordinate an option around this? You know, whether they do a pass-through charge separately, or, you know, I'm just curious if there's other options besides trying to build this in when it's not super commonly needed. And if it's, you know, $40 per, then it's not even necessarily competitive with just finding some, you know, a local trash hauler.
Brenda.
You know, having the city do it would mean personnel, adding at least a couple people and probably a vehicle. And it is super common. Like I said, when I spoke at the meeting prior to this, I told you there were 3 mattresses and a couch in my alley. All those homeowners got tickets, and they were there for about 4 weeks. It's way more common than you think. And I really do think that we do need something that, I guess, that organizes this, whether it be privatized with a trash company like this, or with the city. Either way, we're going to pay. So this is just one vehicle with which we can use this RFP to see if how much that would be. So it's just, again, just really an element on the RFP. We don't have to make any laws or decisions, but we do want to get prices. So what we have to do is take this and segue into what kind of verbiage do we want to put in the RFP. And I'm no expert on that, but it sounds like we want a fee schedule twice a year for large item pickup at the home. And we want a fee schedule by item of large common items. You know, does anybody else agree or can expand on that?
I see Kanji has his hand raised. I think he has something to contribute. So go ahead, Kanji.
No, I was going to comment on that as well. I think that was my same idea is if we're just getting price comparisons, why don't we just ask for both scenarios, right? To include it in the base pickup and exclude it from the base pickup, but give us the options of the a la carte menu.
Jeff, I see you have your hand raised.
Yep, I couldn't agree with Kanji more. I think the objective right now is to figure out what is going into this next round of RFP, and the more informed decision with as many different scenarios as possible, with as many differences in price point, is a good thing. So I'd propose we ask callers to submit it not included in the base and as an a la carte option, meaning a large item pickup at the home, as well as any impact that would have or in just an overall bid on it being included in the base price.
I think I hear a motion. I might give Kanji.
I would move to make that motion.
Second.
Moved. I heard Member Fraser move that, and I think that was Member Borman second.
He might have as well, but I did too. I don't know.
Oh, I'm sorry. I heard the voice wrong. Carson, I'll give you the second on that. Lorraine, will you go ahead and call the roll, please? Do you need us to repeat the motion?
I've got it, Chair Ward. Thank you.
All right.
Chair Ward,
Yes.
Vice Chair Green,
Yes.
Member Borman,
Yes.
Member Brinker, Member Brinker, Member Brown,
Yes.
Member Fraser,
Yes.
Member Hubka,
Yes.
Member Kawanabe,
Yes.
Member Labe,
Yes.
Member Brinker, eight yeses. That motion passes.
Thank you. Is there anything to add on the subject of large item? Carson.
I'm not clear where we stand with, like, we made our motion and passed it to where the base trash service is going to have the 5 extra bags and bundled branches, but are we also going, do we already have it in the plan for the RFP for an option for a more appropriate green waste option, or where do we stand with that?
I don't believe we've made a motion on to that effect. So to your point, yes, last meeting, we talked about adding the bags, which could be trash or my understanding was green waste, either one. And or bundles of branches to a certain length and weight.
Right. So I guess I was thinking that we were also going to ask for an a la carte option for, you know, similar to what you originally had for green waste pickup, going to, you know, pick up from house green waste, going to appropriate green location. You know, I don't know if it's a couple times a year or on request or whatever, but as an a la carte option that people can have.
Yeah, and I think, I don't know if that we had a formal motion. Lorraine has summarized all the motions to date, and those are attached to the agenda. If
Yeah, I
anybody
don't
wants
see it
to
in
go up
there.
and look at that. Yeah, so I don't think we ever did a formal motion on that. But I think the direction was to explore alternate options potentially.
Well, I mean, I don't know if people want to discuss it first, but I would be up for making a motion for that, Chair Ward.
You have the floor, Carson, so.
All right.
I don't see
So
any other
I make a motion that we also include in the RFP, you know, as a la carte type thing, we've been doing it with everything else, the option for green waste pickups, at least, I guess, once in the spring, once in the fall, at the home, and what that would cost to include or exclude.
Second that.
I would make a motion.
I thought I heard Brenda speak up, but I also heard someone else, so let's take a second on that.
I'm sorry, I was just trying to second the motion.
Moved by Carson, seconded by Brenda Hubka. The green waste. Carson, would you summarize that one more time?
Sure. So an a la carte option, you know, include or exclude green waste pickup at home in spring and in fall, where the green waste goes to, you know, an appropriate green waste recycling facility.
Okay, I think that's the part that I missed on the first round. All right, so Lorraine, do you have that motion?
Yes, I do, Chair Ward.
You may go ahead and call the roll. It's been moved and seconded.
Chair Ward,
Yes.
Vice Chair Green,
Yes.
Member Borman,
Yes.
Member Brinker.
Abstain?
Did you say abstain?
Yes, abstain.
Thank you. Member Brown,
Yes.
Member Frazier,
Yes.
Member Hupka,
Yes.
Member Kawanabe,
Yes.
Member Labe,
Yes.
8 yeses and 1 abstain. Motion passes.
All right, does anybody else have anything to offer? I don't see any raised hands, so we will return the floor to Director DeAndrea.
Great, thank you. So again, that was kind of the last topic for the services. And now we'll talk about some of the contractual items within the RFP. So the first one that we'll discuss is customer service protocol.
So this might actually be a good time to pause. Maria, I'm sorry to interrupt you while
That's
you're
right.
gathering steam. It is 7:35. We could talk about this for 10 minutes, or we could just roll over to Chairman's choice and Member's choice, which would give each individual a little more time to speak during those portions.
Sounds good.
Either way.
I'm not
Sure,
hearing.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to going a little longer tonight as well, since we haven't been able to get to a lot on the agenda.
Yeah, I
I
can.
agree with, oh, sorry, Chair Ward.
But I think we're at a natural breaking point. So I'd like to roll over, but if there is even one objection to that, we'll just continue with the original plan. So I'll just say, if you do object, feel free to raise your hand. I see, Marcy, you do have your hand raised, so go ahead.
I agree that we should roll it over.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say too. I think the customer service discussion is going to be significant.
Sorry to pause the train just after it started getting rolling, but I think we are just going to go ahead and move into chairman's choice or chairperson's choice. So I'll start off by kicking the ball. I just have a couple things to offer to the committee. First of all, I think we're coming pretty close to the time when it would benefit us to engage the haulers. We seem to be talking a lot about items that we would like to add, but we don't understand fully, or at least I don't understand fully, why their responses originally came back the way they did. So I would encourage us to set a date certain to take one of our meetings to speak with the two waste haulers that did originally respond to the RFPs and see if we can get them in to sort of have a little more free discussion of those issues. And that might help us capture a little bit better what they're thinking so that we can work on crafting an RFP that everybody can perhaps benefit from. Secondly, I have kind of a sensitive topic to raise, and I wish I didn't have to do this. We had a little bit of, I'll call it friction at our last meeting, specifically over the subject of case. And we did hear a little bit of that tonight as well. Earlier today, the Director of Public Works, Director DeAndrea, contacted me in regards to a council request that came back in regards to case membership. And my response to that was, I'm not interested in engaging that any further. I'm of the opinion that individuals who serve on this committee can disclose or not disclose any of their private relationships with other people, any of their private community activities. We all applied for this committee. We were all appointed by council. Some of us serve on city boards, and CASE, as has been noted previously, is a private group of citizens. So I view this similarly to asking someone or asking each member of the board what political party they're a member of, what church they attend, other types of questions that are personal and could be viewed as sensitive. What I am most concerned about is the ability of the members of this group to get along with one another and to conduct the business that this group is tasked with discussing. Other members of the public may be curious about other affiliations, some of which may just show through based on what the members do. On the record, in the last session, there were 2 people who publicly disclosed their case membership. Anyone tonight has the option of doing that as well. I think that that satisfies the requirements of participation in this committee. And personally, I think it's wrong to push people to disclose private affiliations or associations as a litmus test for participation in the committee. And lastly, that rant having been pushed through, I view this process as having value regardless of the outcome. I'm not the type of person you'll ever hear say, we shouldn't discuss this because I don't like that idea. I think the discussion has value regardless of whether or not the idea is palatable to individuals in our community or certain people. I think that it's very possible that this committee could have an end product that serves the entire community better than what is currently available. I understand concerns about personal choice. I do. I feel much the same way. I understand the demand or request for a vote. Truly, I do. I expressed some concern about that early in the pilot discussions. What I will say to that, politically speaking, is that under the city charter and the Inglewood Municipal Code, the Inglewood City Council is entitled to make this decision on behalf of the citizens. If anyone objects to the council making that decision on behalf of the citizens regarding a single hauler, the city of Inglewood has a petitions process. You could easily revoke that authority from council by getting sufficient signatures, putting something on the ballot, and running it, saying, don't do this. So that is an option. Those objections are not going to stop me from participating in this committee and from getting what I think is the best service possible for the city, and for discussing some of the sticking points that residents have and some that I individually have as a customer of this service and as a constituent of the city of Inglewood. So I appreciate your indulging that, and that's all I have. The floor is now open. I see 2 hands raised. Jeff, you are first.
Thanks, Chair Ward. I appreciate your comments. Couple of things you touched on. I totally agree. It's getting close to time for us to engage haulers, as many as possible. One question on that is whether we've had any communications with Waste Connections, because they did not submit a bid in the initial RFP. So I'm curious if we've had any communications with them, if they are interested in submitting a bid. Obviously, the more competition, the better there. I don't know if Director DeAndrea could opine on that. I did have one other point as well after.
Yeah, if you recall, I had sent out a letter before we began the RFP process, inviting each company to meet with me to go over questions they had about the process, inform me of different things. So we did reach out to Waste Connections. I did have a meeting with them, but then they chose not to bid, which we never asked why, just because of the process that we go through when we were still evaluating the RFPs. So they did have the opportunity to speak with us and did take advantage of that.
Okay, thank you. And then just on the point of CASE, by the way, I think I mentioned this in the last meeting. I founded CASE. It stands for Citizens Alliance for a Sustainable Englewood. If you're interested, we have a website. It's called sustainable-englewood.org. And really what I can tell you about the group is it's a group of friends, essentially, who care about the same issues. We are not Antifa. We are not involved in some large, crazy conspiracy other than potentially trying to provide you with cleaner air, cleaner water, and a more livable planet by any means. I'm a member of it. People come, people go. There are some people, like I think Brenda's been to 1 meeting. Some people come to more, some people get emails from the group, but I do agree it's up to folks whether, they want to say they're a member or not. There's no formal membership structure. It's like, attending a, Bible study club at your church. If you'd identify in that, whether you're a member of that, or, I could say, okay, all members need to identify, when was the last time they talked to, I don't know, Lorette Barentine. And I agree that would be a ridiculous thing to ask. And I'm not going to ask that because that's people's private business and private communications. So I think the whole thing's essentially a non-issue. I can tell you the comment earlier that CASE members, whatever that may mean, has a majority on this committee is definitely not true. A majority of this committee has never attended a CASE meeting, has never even gotten CASE emails. And if they did, it would be completely fine because there is an open and clear application process to be a part of this committee that was vetted and approved by City Council. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with being an engaged and involved citizen. So that's all I'm going to say about that, but I appreciate the comment.
Thank you, Jeff. Carson, you're next.
Thanks, Chair Ward. Totally also agree with you that if we could have discussion with haulers, that would be really helpful because there's so many things we could ask that we're having to kind of guess around. And I think it would be worth doing that before finalizing the RFP as well, sooner than later. I wanted to address, I would like to have a more formal, consistent way for materials to be included in the public record agenda. So like since our last meeting, Chair Ward and I both received a couple emails from citizens, or at least one was a citizen, one was the guy who spoke about compost. And, you know, like when messages are sent to us like that, I think they should be automatically included in the agenda so that anyone who pulls the agenda for our meeting can see whatever latest communications come in from the public. I believe that any of us that want to include information in the public record should be able to send it to, you know, Chair Ward and Ms. Olguin and have it become part of the agenda and part of the public record, you know, in that PDF. And then in regard to the concept of this going to like ballot. So, you know, my original gut feeling was, why wouldn't this go to a ballot as well? But I mean, if you think about it, if this, and this is just total opinion speculation, but if this were to go to a ballot and it passed, the chances of what that ballot, you know, description would be being anywhere near the level of what this RFP that we're creating together would be, it's very low chance. So personally, as a citizen, I would rather, if this were to happen to me outside of my own choice, you know, it going to single hauler, I would much prefer it going through what we're doing. You know I represent plenty of pushback to the original RFP, and I'm not alone. You know, so I think what, you know that where I'm coming from is I don't want it unless it's, you know, better service and lower price. And that's what I'm going to continue to push for. And I think that, you know, for the public who's concerned about it going to ballot, picture it going to ballot as a, should the city go to single hauler, yes or no? It passes yes, and then city staff defines it and makes a contract and forces it on all of us without this level of citizen input and care into really trying to make it a better option, you know, service and cost from citizen perspective. So just wanted to put that out there.
Thank you, Carson. And I will say that the fact that those emails were not included in this week's record was a personal oversight on my behalf, and we'll look to do that going forward. I just forgot to forward it and say, hey, push this into the agenda packet. I concur. I think that anything that we receive individually should go into the agenda packet, as the emails that I've been receiving, I believe, have been copied to staff as well. I'd be happy to provide what I've gotten so far for our next session's packet as well.
There's a few that I provided to Director DeAndrea over the course of our meetings that I would like to see in there as well. Like, you know, some of it's been shared among our committee, but hasn't ended up in the public record that citizens are able to see. And I want, you know, especially when we've got citizens who are concerned about what's going on, I think we should err on the side of transparency, and everything should be part of that public record in the PDF that's put out each meeting.
Yeah, I agree. I think we've settled that. If we need to talk about that offline, Maria and Lorraine, feel free to email me or give me a call. The next person, I believe Marcy was the next to have her hand raised. So Marcy, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I agree with Vice Chair Green that this whole process should be transparent. And Chair Ward, you said that you will listen to what we have to say. And so I would like to say this, if it's going to be transparent, then I'm sorry, I want to know who's on this committee. And if CASE is a public committee or a group of friends, then what's the harm in asking that question? And it's not like I'm asking, are you a Democrat or are you a Republican? I was just asking a simple question. And at the last meeting, they were the ones who interrupted me, not the other way around. And Chair Ward, you did not call point of order. So I was a little upset about that you let them come at me like that. And I would also like to say that I did want to respond to public comment. I didn't even get my sentence out before a point of order was put on me. That was going to be on public comment. It had nothing to do with anything else. So let's treat everybody with the same amount of courtesy in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcy. I'll just say on the record, I'm sorry if you felt that you were mistreated or if I did treat you unfairly. I am not a professional at this. I'm an amateur, a volunteer citizen, just like you. I do my best to maintain order and to interpret the parliamentary procedure appropriately. The point of order is an interrupt motion, so it stops whatever occurs. Saying the phrase point of order, the chair will address that point of order. As the chair, however, I don't feel obligated to use that phrase because I'm not asking for the attention of the chair. So that's why you didn't hear that phrase come from my mouth.
And I do understand that, Chair Ward. I mean, I do understand what point of order means, but I mean, I think it went too far and someone should have stepped in because I just asked a simple question. That's all I asked. And yes, I would respect the fact that you treat us all with the same courtesy, which I believe you try to do. And that's all I'm going to say, but thank you.
Thank you, Marcy. And in the spirit of constant improvement, I will do my best to do better in the future. Brenda is next.
Hi, yeah. So in the spirit of full disclosure, it's true, I've only been to one CASE meeting, but I have liked their Facebook page. And I appreciate what they do with our trying to make Englewood more sustainable. Now, in the interest of, and I'm sorry if I upset you last week, Marcy, but I was, I guess, maybe insulted because there seemed to have been the idea that there's something suspect in my involvement with CASE. But I'll tell you what, I, just like you, I applied for this position, and my profile is on LinkedIn. If you were to Google search Brenda Hubka, you'll see that I was once a member of Women in Telecom. Been a member of a lot of stuff, but most important, what's really important to me is bringing the utmost ethics and integrity into this process. Now, that's something I've studied in college. I have 2 college degrees. I have an MBA, and it is something that is absolutely asked of me every day in my job. I'm a buyer for Verizon Wireless. I buy these services at 5, 10, 20-year lease times, and I take in bids. That is what I do. I say, hey, we're going to build a cell site up in the mountains, and I need you to get it from the mountains over to this town. And then big companies like CenturyLink and Comcast and some of you haven't heard of Zayo, they want to lay that fiber and they want to charge us every month for that fiber. So I'm looking for not just the best cost, but also the most reliable, because if that service starts to go down, I'm the one who bought it. And all those operations people are coming to me going, what the heck? Why did you buy Joe's Cable Company? Why'd you do that? I mean, it was cheap. So that's why I want to get involved in this process. And that's why I've been participating, because I am a third generation native Coloradoan. I was born in Denver. My parents went to Englewood High School. My grandparents went to Englewood High School. And I'm a homeowner. And I want something really good and cheap, you know.
So Brenda,
even though
Brenda, can I interrupt you and ask you if you can lower my Comcast bill?
I wish I could, but yes, actually I can. You have to call them and threaten to cancel. And no, say you're going to cancel. Call them and go, no, I'm canceling. And they send you to what's called the save team. And that's where they go, whoa, don't cancel. Let's get you on a better plan.
I think Marcy was clear. She wants you to do it, Brenda.
I'll be calling you,
Oh,
Brenda.
okay, wait, let me segue into something better though. Let me say that I do think we need to talk to these trash haulers. I was against it at first because I didn't think we had enough information with which to ask them questions. And now that we've been through all this talk and all this, I think we're really prepared with a lot of questions and things that we need to get answered. So I'm all for that. And I was wondering, can we ask Lorraine, can we ask Waste Management Connections if maybe they're interested again? That's my spiel. I'm done.
Thank you, Brenda. I see your hand raised, Carson. I'm going to go to Kanji next, since he has not spoken yet, and then I'll circle around to you, Carson. I just didn't want you to sit there and wonder if I saw you. Kanji, go ahead, please.
Right on. I'll make this quick. If we are going to talk to these haulers, can we start to put together a comparative matrix so that we can get these line items down and we can start doing direct comparisons between not only the servicers, but our current services as well, right? So then we can just have some justifiable ways to move forward and say this is cheaper, as well as line item, what are our objectives? What are we looking to do? Environment, cost, alley, the whole bit, right? And then we can have these questions itemized, and we can come to these haulers as informed and organized, and we can kind of knock this out faster rather than kind of shotgunning it. That's it. Thanks all.
Did I hear you volunteering, Kanji, to create a matrix?
What was that? I lost you. Connection's bad.
All right. Carson, you have the floor.
I like what Member Quantaby just said. That makes total sense. And it would be really nice to actually know details about what everyone's paying with all the different providers and what services they have. I mean, I've provided it for waste services, but it'd be great to see the details of all of them. And then as far as like, Member Brown, I understand, where you're coming from in asking about the whole case thing, but I agree with Chair Ward that, affiliations, we're all citizens. We all got appointed. We all, are doing this because we care, what, environmental positive or negative or religious or whatever affiliations we have are irrelevant. And I agree that that this one particular club or group or whatever it is shouldn't be, any different than like asking me questions about, what religion or friend group or whatever else I might be involved in. And so I just wanted to support Chair Ward on what you said there.
Thank you, Carson. I don't see any other hands raised. Christine.
Thanks. Last comment. Since I know you're wrapping up, I just want to thank you, Chair Ward and Vice Chair Green, for facilitating this meeting and all the other meetings and all the time and professionalism you put into it. I want you guys to know that it's really very appreciated, even if sometimes it's probably a thankless job. And also, while I'm at it, Director DeAndrea, for her expertise and insight and commitment and patience to the job to always help us try to make the best decision. Thanks.
Thank you, everybody. I hope tonight will signal a sort of a new beginning or a renaissance for this committee. I would really like to get past what happened at our last meeting. And I think we have tonight. So I will look forward to our next session, which I believe will be in 2 weeks. There was one question about why we meet on the same night as council. And I forgot to address that, but the answer to that is in the early days of this committee, we had grave difficulty finding a night when we could all meet. So at that time, the night that most commonly was available to the members was Monday. And at that time, we decided to meet on Mondays that were study session nights for council. And we were off that schedule for a month or two, but we are back on the study session schedule. But there's not a conspiracy to meet the same night as council. It just happens to be the night that works best for us. Does anybody else have anything to add? If you do, now is the time to raise your hand. Anything from staff? Jeff, your hand is raised.
Sorry, I'll be very quick. Just on the process, and I know we have to get to customer service matters and other things before we get this RFP out, but I think we should at the next meeting try to set some targets on when we have a timeline to go through all the RFP items. And I know council also wanted to review any RFP before it goes out. I think it was Ms. Ogden earlier brought up some very valid concerns about income and low income assistance. I think that's extremely valid, and I know this committee has an interest in addressing that. But to me, we need to see the dollars and cents first of the RFP to see if this process even moves forward. Because I can tell you this, if this isn't a good financial deal for citizens, I'm not going to support it. So before we even get to that point, we need to see the dollars and cents here and all the different options. So I just think a timeline on what it will take for us to get to the point of RFP would be a nice item to add to perhaps the next meeting, so we can plan ahead.
So as the person who would be asked to approve the agenda for the next meeting, I would not schedule that for our next meeting because I'd like to give an opportunity for Maria to finish her presentation that she's been trying to get through for the last 2 months. But the following meeting would be good for that, I think. Carson?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, before we do have the hauler meeting, like I think we should get through customer service. I think we should get through discussing penalties. I think we should have, mostly our kind of plan in place of what matters to us all together. And, so that we can formulate all of our questions around that. And it's going to take some time probably to make the matrix that Member Kawanabe said and get all the details about what everyone's paying and what their service levels are. Because I do think that that is a great idea and would be very helpful for us to, be as effective as possible when we meet with the haulers.
Marcy?
Yeah, I was just going to say, when will we be expecting bids from other trash companies? I mean, are we going back to the same ones, or are we trying to reach out to maybe others?
Yeah, I think that you and Jeff are on the same page there regarding the question of timeline. So the way it worked the first time was we issued a request for proposals, and the haulers that wanted to respond to that did. I would suspect that it would occur similarly and likely with similar results this time. Maria, can you perhaps clarify that?
Yeah, so first to the question from Member Fraser about schedule, we can certainly talk about that, Chair Ward. I've already kind of drafted up a schedule, and that might help this discussion. So I'm more than happy to put that on the agenda for next time if we are able to get to that. Or maybe that's more of a priority than some of these other topics. And then as far as schedule, so once we do issue the RFP, the last time we left about 5 to 6 weeks for people to respond, for companies to respond, and that would go out to the public, so all companies would be able to respond to that again, not just the 2 that were responded last time. So it would be open to anybody.
Awesome. I would say if you have the timeline already worked out, there's no harm in putting it at least as informational in next agenda packet. I was thinking that would be something that we would have to work through. All right, anybody else? Well, thank you everyone for your time this evening and for respecting our timeline. It's 8:05 and I am adjourning this meeting.
Good night, all.
Everybody.
Thanks all.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Good night.
Good job.